What happens when an entitled duchess meets America's sweetheart on live television? Buckle up, because what you're about to hear will leave you speechless. This is the story of how Meghan Markle ended up getting herself thrown off the Drew Barrymore show in what can only be described as one of the most explosive celebrity meltdowns ever caught on camera. The producers tried to bury the footage, but the truth always finds a way out. It was supposed to be a routine promotional appearance. Meghan had a new lifestyle brand to promote, and Drew's show was the perfect place for the warm, feel-good interview that usually leaves everyone smiling. The studio audience was packed, the lighting was perfect, and Drew Barrymore was doing what she does best, being genuinely enthusiastic. "I am so excited to have you here today." Drew beamed as she settled into her chair across from Meghan. "Your journey from actress to duchess to entrepreneur is incredible." Meghan smiled, the practiced expression she'd perfected over years of red carpets and royal events. "Thank you so much for having me, Drew. I've always admired your authenticity." The word authenticity lingered a beat too long. Drew, ever the professional, moved on with her prepared questions about Meghan's new business venture. But there was something in Meghan's tone that felt calculated to rehearse. "Tell us about your new brand," Drew continued warmly. "What inspired you to launch this line of products?" Meghan launched into a rehearsed pitch about empowerment and sustainability, but her delivery felt cold, almost corporate. The audience, buzzing with excitement minutes earlier, sensed the change. "That's wonderful," Drew gently interjected when Meghan paused. "But I have to ask, our viewers are really curious about your life now. How are you finding this new chapter outside royal duties?" The question was innocent, a typical softball any publicist would expect. But something flickered across Meghan's face, a flash of irritation she failed to hide. "Well, Drew," Meghan said, her smile tightening, "I think it's important we focus on the positive work I'm doing now rather than dwelling on the past." "Of course," Drew replied, sensing the tension but trying to steer around it. "I just think our audience connects with personal stories, the struggles, the growth." "I understand what you're trying to do," Meghan cut in, an edge creeping into her voice. "But I came here to talk about my brand, not to be psychoanalyzed on daytime television." The studio fell silent. This was not the friendly conversation anyone expected. "I'm sorry if it came across that way," Drew said sincerely. "I just love hearing about people's journeys, especially when they've overcome challenges." "Overcome challenges," Meghan repeated, her voice rising just enough to make the audience shift in their seats. "I think you have the wrong idea about my story, Drew." The producers were likely panicking. This was live television, and their guest was unraveling in front of millions. "I don't think I do," Drew said carefully. Leaving royal life couldn't have been easy. Starting over in a new country. Starting over. Meghan's laugh was sharp, humorless. "Drew, I think you've been reading too many tabloids. My life isn't some sob story for your audience to pity." The tension was now thick enough to cut. Drew's natural empathy clashed with Meghan's defensive wall. "I never said it was a sob story," Drew replied gently, but with a hint of steel. "I was trying to celebrate your strength." "My strength?" Meghan scoffed. "You want to talk about strength? Let's talk about the strength it takes to sit here while you turn my appearance into some kind of trauma bonding session." The audience was silent, watching the situation collapse. "Meghan, I think there's been a misunderstanding," Drew said softly, her voice wavering. "I would never exploit someone's personal struggles. That's not who I am, isn't it, though?" Meghan shot back. "Isn't that what daytime television is? Getting people to open up about their pain so your viewers can feel better about their own lives." The words hung in the air like a slap. Drew Barrymore, beloved for her warmth and vulnerability, had just been accused of being exploitative on her own show. The hurt on her face was unmistakable. "I think," Drew said quietly, "we should take a commercial break." But Meghan wasn't finished. "No, let's not take a break. Let's address this right now. You invited me here to promote my work, but all you want to do is dig into my personal life like I'm some kind of curiosity." The control room erupted into chaos. The director kept signaling to cut to commercial, but the cameras stayed on. It was a disaster in television gold. "That's not true," Drew said, her voice steadier now. "I ask personal questions because I believe in human connection. I share my own struggles because I think it helps people feel less alone." "How noble of you," Meghan replied sarcastically. "St. Drew, helping all the lonely people by getting celebrities to cry on television." The cruelty in her tone stunned the room. This was no longer a misunderstanding. Meghan was attacking everything Drew's show stood for. Drew inhaled deeply. When she spoke again, her voice was steady but cold. "I think you should leave." The words hit the studio like a thunderclap. Drew Barrymore, who built her career on kindness, had just told a guest to leave her show. But Meghan didn't move. "Excuse me," she said, indignation dripping from every syllable. "You're kicking me off your show because I won't play along with your little therapy session." Drew rose to her feet, hands trembling slightly. "I'm asking you to leave because you're being cruel and disrespectful, not just to me, but to what this show represents." "What this show represents," Meghan repeated with a bitter laugh. "Standing as well. This show represents everything wrong with American media. You parade people's pain for entertainment and call it healing. The audience sat frozen, unsure whether to clap, boo, or just breathe. A few secretly held up their phones despite the no recording rule. This would be online in minutes. That's enough, Drew said firmly. Security, please escort Ms. Markle from the building. Before security could act, Meghan raised a hand. Don't you dare treat me like some common troublemaker. Do you have any idea who you're talking to? Yes, Drew answered calmly. I'm talking to someone who came on my show and chose to be nasty instead of kind. And that tells me everything I need to know. The simplicity of the statement infuriated Meghan. Nasty. I'm telling the truth about your exploitative format, and you call me nasty. You attacked me personally. Drew shot back, her voice rising for the first time. You questioned my integrity and my motives when all I tried to do was have a conversation. A conversation. Meghan scoffed. You wanted me to break down and cry so your audience could feel superior. That's not conversation, that's manipulation. Drew's eyes filled with tears, but she held firm. I have never tried to make anyone feel bad on this show. I share my own pain so people know they aren't alone. How convenient, Meghan sneered. The host who cries gets to make millions while pretending to care about other people's problems. The cruelty sent a gasp through the crowd. Some audience members stood, ready to walk out. The moment had drifted from uncomfortable to downright ugly. Get out. Drew said softly, her voice trembling but authoritative. Get out of my studio right now. I'm not leaving until I've said what I came to say, Meghan declared, turning toward the cameras. America needs to know what kind of person you really are. Drew Barrymore. The cameraman looked toward the director, unsure whether to keep rolling or cut the feed. What kind of person am I? Drew asked, wiping her eyes. Please, enlighten everyone. You're a fraud, Meghan said coldly. You built your career on being damaged and vulnerable, and now you make money by getting others to be damaged and vulnerable on television. That's not true, Drew replied, her voice breaking. I share my story to show that pain doesn't have to define you, that you can heal, grow, and still find joy. Spare me, Meghan waved dismissively. You're no different from any talk show host feeding off other people's misery. The audience had heard enough. Someone booed from the back, and soon others joined in. Meghan turned toward them, her expression full of disdain. Oh please, she said, addressing the crowd. You're booing me for telling the truth, Meghan snapped. This is exactly the kind of mob mentality that fuels everything wrong with this country. Leave the audience out of this, Drew said sharply. They didn't do anything to you. They're part of the problem, Meghan shot back. Sitting there, consuming other people's pain, like entertainment, it's sick. You know what's sick? Drew's voice rose, strengthened by genuine anger. Coming on someone's show as a guest, and then attacking them and their audience for no reason. No reason. Meghan turned on her, eyes blazing. You ambushed me with personal questions when I came here specifically to promote my business. I asked how you were doing in your new life. Drew said, incredulous. That's hardly an ambush. It's a setup, Meghan insisted. You knew exactly what you were doing. Trying to get me talking about the royal family, about leaving England, about all the drama. Well, I'm not playing that game. Then why come on the show at all? Drew asked, genuinely confused. If you hate what I do so much, why agree to be here? Meghan paused, caught off guard by the question. Because I thought you might be different. I thought maybe you'd actually want to talk about my work, the positive impact I'm trying to make. I did want to talk about that, Drew said, almost pleading. I asked you about your brand. I was interested in your work, but when I tried to connect it to your personal journey, you attacked me. Personal journey, Meghan repeated mockingly. There's that therapist speak again. Can't you have a normal conversation without psychoanalyzing everyone? I wasn't psychoanalyzing you, Drew protested. I was trying to understand you as a person, not just a brand representative. Maybe I don't want to be understood by you, Meghan said coldly. Maybe I just want to be respected enough to talk about my work without being forced to bare my soul for your entertainment. Drew looked at her for a long moment. When she finally spoke, her voice was quiet but firm. Respect is earned, Meghan, and right now, you're not earning it. The studio went completely silent. Even the crew stopped moving. It was the moment everyone realized Drew Barrymore, the eternal optimist, had reached her limit. Meghan flushed red. How dare you lecture me about respect when you've been disrespecting me since I walked out here? I welcomed you warmly, Drew said, her voice gaining strength. I introduced you with genuine enthusiasm. I asked thoughtful questions about your work and your life. And you repaid that by insulting me, my show, and my audience. Thoughtful questions. Meghan laughed harshly. You wanted me to trauma dump on national television and call that thoughtful. I wanted you to be human, Drew said simply. But apparently that's too much to ask. The accusation hung in the air like poison. Drew went pale, and for a moment it looked like she might cry, but something shifted in her expression. The hurt was still there, but now it was mixed with steel. Too much to ask, Drew repeated softly. You know what, Meghan? You're right. Apparently, asking you to be a decent human being is too much to ask. The audience erupted in applause. But Meghan wasn't done. Decent human being. She shot back. You're calling me indecent because I won't participate in your emotional manipulation. I'm calling you indecent because you came into my house and attacked me for trying to be kind to you," Drew said, her voice stronger than it had been all day. "You turned a simple interview into a battlefield for no reason except your own ego." "My ego?" Meghan's voice spiked. "You're the one who can't handle being called out for what you really are." "And what am I really?" Drew stepped closer. "Go on, tell everyone." Meghan looked straight into the camera, her expression icily deliberate. "You're a has-been child star who never grew up, clinging to relevance by turning other people's pain into your content." The studio went dead silent. Even the crew looked shaken. This wasn't just rude, it was a full character attack on live television. Drew stood perfectly still. When she finally spoke, her voice was eerily calm. "Security, remove her from my studio now." But Meghan held up her hand, backing away from the approaching guards. "Don't touch me. I'm not some common criminal." "No," Drew said quietly. "Common criminals usually have better manners." The line landed hard. Several audience members gasped. Drew Barrymore, America's sweetheart, had just delivered a devastating blow, and the shift in the room was unmistakable. Meghan's face reddened with fury. "You think you're clever. You think your little quips make you better than me." "I think my behavior today makes me better than you," Drew replied. "I try to be kind, and you chose to be cruel. That's the difference between us." "Kind," Meghan laughed bitterly. "You call ambushing your guests with personal questions kind. I call treating my guests with warmth and interest kind," Drew countered. "Something you clearly wouldn't understand." "I understand perfectly," Meghan snapped. "I understand that you're jealous of anyone who's actually accomplished something meaningful with their life." The accusation was so outrageous that several audience members started booing again. Drew held up her hand to quiet them, her expression now completely composed. "Meaningful?" Drew asked quietly. "Tell me, Meghan, what's meaningful about coming on someone's show just to tear them down?" "I'm exposing the truth about your exploitative format," Meghan declared, as if doing some kind of public service. "The only thing you're exposing is your own character," Drew replied, "and it's not a pretty sight." Meghan's eyes flashed dangerously. "How dare you judge my character when you don't know anything about my life?" "I know what I've seen today," Drew said firmly. "I know that I invited you here with respect and enthusiasm, and you repaid that by being nasty and cruel. That tells me everything I need to know about your character." "You don't know what it's like to be constantly attacked by the media," Meghan said, her voice slipping into self-pity. "You don't know what it's like to have every word you say twisted and used against you." "Actually, I do," Drew said quietly. "I've been in this business since I was 7. I've been through addiction, divorce, family drama, all of it, in the public eye. The difference is, I didn't let it make me bitter." The comparison clearly struck a nerve. Meghan's composure cracked. "Don't you dare compare your little Hollywood problems to what I've been through." "What you've been through?" Drew's voice rose. "You married into one of the most privileged families in the world, had a fairy tale wedding, and then complained when it wasn't perfect. Meanwhile, you're standing here attacking me for trying to connect with you as a human being. Privilege?" Meghan shrieked. "You have no idea what I sacrificed, what I gave up." "I know what you're giving up right now," Drew said coldly. "Your dignity, your reputation, and any chance of being welcomed back on this show." The finality in Drew's tone seemed to land for the first time. Meghan looked around the studio at the hostile audience, the crew staring at her in disgust, the security guards waiting. "Fine," she said, trying to regain composure. "I don't need this. I don't need to be here begging for approval from people who don't matter." "Then leave," Drew said simply. "Just leave." Meghan gathered what was left of her dignity and started toward the exit. But she paused for one last shot. "You'll regret this, Drew. When the truth comes out about what really happened here today, you'll regret treating me this way." Drew watched her go. When she spoke, her voice carried across the studio. "The only truth is what everyone just witnessed. You came here as my guest, and you chose to be cruel. That's your truth, Meghan. Own it." Meghan stopped at the exit and turned back one more time. "This isn't over." "Yes, it is," Drew replied firmly. "Security, please make sure she leaves the building." As Meghan was finally escorted out, the audience erupted in applause. Drew stood there for a moment, visibly shaken but victorious. She had maintained her dignity while standing up for herself and her show. When the applause died down, she looked directly into the camera, her warmth returning despite everything. "Well," she said with a shaky laugh, "that wasn't exactly what we had planned for today's show." The audience laughed, grateful for a moment of levity after the confrontation. "I want to apologize to everyone who came here expecting a normal interview," Drew continued. "I never want my show to be a place where people feel attacked or uncomfortable. But I also won't let anyone come into this space and be cruel to me or to you." The audience applauded again, this time with genuine affection. "I believe in kindness," Drew said, her voice stronger. "I believe in giving people the benefit of the doubt. But I also believe in standing up for what's right, and what happened here today wasn't right." She paused, looking around at the faces in the audience and her crew, everyone who had just shared this surreal moment. "Tomorrow we'll be back to our regular programming," she said with a smile. But today, I hope we all learned something about the importance of treating each other with respect. The show ended with Drew waving to her audience, bruised but not broken. And as the credits rolled, everyone knew they had witnessed something that would be talked about for years. So, what do you think? Was Drew right to kick Meghan off her show, or should she have tried harder to salvage the interview? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. And don't forget to subscribe for more celebrity stories you won't believe until you hear them.